Looks like some people are joining. Hey guys, Steve with Prima Coffee. Today we're taking a look at the Miscellaneous Goods Company Coil. This thing is, it's really interesting. It's basically a, well, I'll just show you how it works, I guess. It's meant to chill your coffee without diluting it. So instead of brewing hot onto ice, you can basically brew hot, brew it to your desired strength and extraction, whatever, you know. If it tastes good hot, hopefully it'll taste good cold here and you won't see any dilution. So you'll pour your hot coffee through the top, and then there's this big stainless steel coil that runs down, and we have it filled up with ice water. So the ice water obviously chills the coil down and cools your coffee as it flows through the coil. Now, I can't really show you because it's, you know, gravity, but there's also a little flow restricting spout on the very end. So that basically limits how fast coffee can flow through, meaning that it stays in contact with the ice water for as long as possible to cool it down as much as possible. So we found that the maximum batch size is probably about 500 milliliters for chilling your coffee. The little carafe here can hold a little bit more than that, but in terms of just the maximum capacity before you have to like refill your ice, 500 is probably the limit there. And the funnel thing on top doesn't really hold that maximum capacity. It holds about, sorry, there's a grinder. It holds about 250 milliliters. So 500 milliliters is, I think, about 12 ounces or a little bit more than that. I don't really know off the top of my head. Let's see, 10 ounces is more like 300-ish. Yeah, it's probably closer to like 13 or 14 ounces. And the top will hold about 8 ounces total, like right to the brim. So I saw somebody asked, what's the difference between steeping your coffee and chilling it like this? So if you steep your coffee and you just do, oh, there you go. Okay, I was way off. So yeah, don't trust me in my mental math. So the difference between something like cold brew, where you leave your water and your coffee in contact for 12 hours or so at room temperature or in the fridge, you're really not getting a complete extraction that way. That's not to say it doesn't taste good. It's just that when you brew with hot water, you're getting a more complete extraction out of your coffee, and you're getting a different flavor balance. So if you like the acidity of your coffee, or if you like the brightness with a lower body, that sort of thing, like if you like how your coffee tastes hot and you want to preserve that, you can't really get that by cold brewing. It's going to be a pretty different flavor out of your extraction. So with this, the hope is that your coffee will taste chilled about the same as it would when it's hot. It's not completely true, but it tastes much closer than it would if you were to cold brew it. And it's also a lot easier to get that same sort of flavor than it is when you brew directly over ice, a la the what some people call the Japanese brewing method, where you're brewing a little bit stronger than normal, brewing it over ice so it cools and dilutes at the same time. So in the end, you get basically your normal strength coffee, but cold. So with this, the idea is no dilution. Your coffee never touches the ice itself. It just gets cooled as it runs through this tube. And it comes in this really swanky looking ceramic brewing package. So Tyler Deeb, the creator of this coil, he's local here in Louisville, so we get to kind of play with this here in the office. So actually, that's a good point, Jason. This whole unit, when it's full of ice and everything, is rather heavy, so it would be difficult to brew it on top of a scale. A lot of scales, any scale with like a 2 kilogram capacity, they're not really going to be able to handle this, because you're pretty much going to max it out when you add your brewing device, your brewing water, your grounds on top of all that, plus the weight of the ceramic, the ice water, everything inside there. And yeah, thank you, Brian. That's I know you've had one and played with it a little bit, so that's really helpful. Yeah, so we found that the Jennings, the CJ4000 is pretty much the only scale that we carry or that we have on hand that can actually accommodate that much weight. There are other scales out there, not Ozeri, Ohaus, OHAUS. They make some higher capacity scales that are, I mean, they're more expensive, but they're also like high precision instruments. I know some cafes have started using those, but the Ohaus scales run like, some of them go up to like 20 kilos with a tenth of a gram resolution, and it's just, you know, that's ridiculous for most people, but I guess if you're going to be doing some coil brewing, you might want that. So we're going to measure temp here, a little digital thermometer. So we have freshly brewed coffee. The Akaya has a 2 kilogram capacity. So we have 154 here.
So we put some ice in the carafe too. So we pre-chilled the carafe and then put ice in the bottom.
Yep, we're pre-chilling everything. Actually, I'm just going to leave this guy down here.
Which, it's good to do the bottom one. You don't necessarily have to do the server. You can.
Yeah.
It'll still, by just pre-chilling the bottom, you should get to where they want to target at. So we should be able to get to 48 degrees.
Yeah, we're hoping to see a temperature of about 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like, you know, it's obviously not like freezer temperature, but if you add a little bit of ice to that, you know, you basically have how most iced coffee is served, like right in that temperature range.
Yeah.
Fridge temp is often just below 40 degrees, like 34 to 40.
Yeah, like 50 degrees tastes fine.
Yeah.
It tastes really good. It's plenty cold enough.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess you probably can't see it because my phone doesn't have super good contrast here, but it does pool up a little bit on the top part. So we have about like a 1/4 inch pooling right here. So like I said, there is a flow restrictor, and the coffee itself also has to push all the air out of the coil inside, so it flows a little slowly. If you were to try brewing on top of this, I think it would probably keep up pretty well.
Yeah.
You might see a little bit of pooling, so you might want to check on it and make sure you're not going to overflow it, especially with those really fast like V60 brews. If you're doing a brew if you're doing like a 300 milliliter brew in 2.5 minutes, that might be a little bit too fast for the coil. So I'd probably recommend sticking to either like a slower brew, like a longer brew, or something that has a, you know, like a Coil wave that has its own flow restriction built right into the dripper itself. But again, the top can hold like 250 mils, so...
yeah, we did a 450 milliliter brew. It went for 3.5 to 4 minutes, and we didn't have any problem with it overflowing or anything like that. It kept up fine.
Yeah. I'm not sure how accurate this is. I don't know if it's hitting the fluid right now, but it shows 46. I personally, I'm not a huge fan of cold brew myself, so I would prefer something like this. When I'm doing cold coffee at home, I basically do this, but you know, as ghetto as I possibly can, where I take like a steaming pitcher or something, and I just dunk it in an ice water bath. And stir the coffee until it cools down, because I don't want to see any dilution, personally, and let's see how cold this coffee is, and I really like the brightness off a hot extraction anyway. So we have just shy of 50 degrees. We'll see what it turns out to be, because there's definitely still a lot of coffee in the coil. We have noticed, at least with the one that we have noticed that you kind of have to tilt the top a little bit to get it to drain fully. I think ours is more of an earlier model though, because it's not one of the ones that went out with the Kickstarter rewards. It's one that's just kind of been hanging around and people have been trying it out.
Yeah, so our top grommet here is a little bit taller than the other ones that I've seen, so that's why we retain a little bit more in the
Brian
top.
says his Kickstarter version is the same. So yeah, I mean, I guess there are still a few kinks to work out, but otherwise it works really well. And like, It's not a messy device or anything. It's pretty easy to use, super intuitive. Let me see if it's still draining here. Oops, there goes my thermometer. Yeah, so we're still draining. Probably has another minute. We also get this fancy, like super high-tech method of clearing the tube. Little ear bulb. I guess these come with them, but you know, we just don't really have a much better method of clearing it out. So you just give it a couple of squirts. Eventually you'll hear air. There we go. We're clear. Yep. Oops. Oops, I broke the thermometer. So, all right, so 2 questions. How do you clean it? Uh-oh, I think I actually did break it. How do you clean it? We've been just running a little bit of hot water and Cafiza through it. Seems to work pretty well. You know, you can pour hot water through until it runs clear, and then run some Cafiza through. And again, because it has that flow restrictor, it does sit in the tube for a little bit, and that seems to just do pretty much as good a job as you need to do. Did I actually break that thermometer by dropping it?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. Well, our thermometer's dead. But it was reading about 50 degrees, which again is where we kind of wanted it to be. Because once you add a little bit of ice, you're going to chill it right down to like 40, which is like really good for a nice coffee drink. Totally dripping here, by the way. Can you do that so it doesn't fall? But yeah, I mean, you know, in just a couple of minutes, you can take freshly brewed coffee and turn it into iced coffee without having to worry about a really long steep or without having to worry about dilution and dialing in your recipe. So basically, the recipe that you have dialed in for a hot brew should be good enough to serve, you know, crash chill just like this. Should taste pretty darn good. I think, you know, with enough of these on the market, we'll probably see some people saying like, oh, well, maybe you want to brew just a little bit stronger because, you know, when it's iced, you don't really taste, you know, the nuances or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty exciting device. It's really nice to see. Those of you who are familiar with like beer brewing, it's pretty much just a wort chiller that's kind of been condensed down and you know, made ready for coffee. But with the Cold Stone cubes, I'm not really sure. I think those have a better benefit when they're in like indirect contact with whatever it is you want to chill down. For this, so you have the ice in top, obviously to kind of provide the thermal capacity with the phase change and everything. The water is there to just provide more surface area for thermal contact. Adding salt, that might actually work. I'm not sure. I mean, you might have to worry about corrosion if you start adding salt, because there are some rubber gaskets that it's in contact with.
So this was just at 50 just now, and it's been sitting out here for a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So 50 is pretty much where we wanted it. So salt, I mean, you might have to worry about corrosion or whatever. You know, right now, it's really nice that you basically just dump this out, maybe give it a rinse, and you know, then you're good because you don't have to worry about it. It's not messy. There isn't any coffee residue in the upper chamber. So salt will, you know, it'll just make it a little bit more complicated to clean out. And I'm not really sure what the long-term effects would be. But you know, in our testing, we haven't really had a problem with cooling, you know, 400 milliliters or so of coffee down quickly enough with just ice and water.
Right. One of the things that Tyler talked about is in moving over from copper to the stainless, you're not losing the ice as quickly. So you can go along the longer batches, and you still, once we get done, we still have ice in this top chamber. So it's still cooling down. It would still be cooling down a larger batch if we had that.
Right.
The coil, or if it was in the copper, which he didn't move forward with because, you know, there's some unknown about corrosion and whatnot with it, but that would have sucked the cool through it, conducted it a lot quicker, so it would have used up the ice quicker. So one of the benefits of the stainless, though, is you can go a little bit longer with your brew, and it'll still kind of moderately suck the coolness out of the ice, and so you're still left with ice when you're done with some of those smaller.
Yeah. So now that he's done with that, Matt's going to take the camera real quick. We're going to reset this, and I'm going to do one of my new favorite experiments, which is like an iced latte, but prepared hot. So the benefit there is that when you steam milk, you change it in a way that you sort of change it on a chemical level in a mild way, but you also change it in a way that is more relevant to how we taste things. Basically, your perception of milk gets, or rather, the perception of sweetness in milk will change when you steam it to like 150 degrees or so. So steamed milk, even if it's cooled down, if it's been steamed to a certain temperature, will taste a little bit sweeter than like fresh milk. So if we take, where's our, let somebody drink this. So if you steam milk and you let it cool down, it still tastes a little bit sweeter than fresh milk. So the idea is, you know, a lot of cafes are preparing, they're preparing iced lattes by brewing some espresso, throwing some milk and ice or flavoring or whatever into a cup, but they're still using fresh milk. So what if we steam milk with espresso and then throw it into something like this? We crash cool it. Does it taste better?
Someone asked if we've compared flash brew over ice with regular hot brew cooled using the coil.
Actually, we haven't yet. I would like to, and it's something we could do easily enough. I think the one consideration is if you want to be fair to those techniques, you want to try and actually dial it in so the strength and the extraction are as similar as possible. So that would require a little bit of experimentation, and we don't actually have a TDS meter here or a refractometer here. So we kind of have to guesstimate a little bit, or try and find a refractometer, dial things in, and then compare the two.
If anybody wants to donate a refractometer to Prima Coffee,
please
just send it to us.
Yeah.
We'll send you a tax write-off form or something.
Right. Save the guys who are using.
Brian said we can use his for this experiment.
Oh yeah. Well, he's just got to get out of Texas and come hang out.
This is also a new toy that we just got in yesterday.
Yep. Not yesterday.
2 days ago. 2 days ago.
It was an LE Mythos 1. Technically, don't believe what the badge tells you.
I'm a pro.
Yeah. And we're still waiting for those lunar scales to get in so we can actually get something that fits on this drip tray. We can't wait. So I'm just going to pull a shot here. Looks pretty good. This was dialed in earlier, so hopefully it's still good.
Man, it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The acidity. I mean, when you're not watering it down by brewing hot and then just pouring over ice at double strength, that tastes a little watered down. But the coil, the acidity in it is just so good, especially when you're not watering it down or cutting it after.
And I think the other thing that I really like about the coil is like the potential for, if somebody's got. Or if you put a couple of these at a cafe or something, if somebody's got an urn or a batch brewer, they've got like 2 gallons brewed of their coffee, and they've already worked on dialing that in so it's good enough to serve, right out of the batch brewer. You can just take a couple pumps of that, put it in your pitcher or your carafe or whatever, and just crash cool it right there. And it's the same thing. You know, you don't have to worry about an iced coffee recipe. You already have your iced coffee. So this, I'm gonna have a spoon. Let me grab one real quick.
We'd like to thank Kroger for sponsoring this Periscope by letting us use whole milk.
Right.
We actually had to buy that. They didn't sponsor it.
Yeah, no, they don't. I'm gonna hold back the foam a little bit here. I'm just gonna kind of fill it up. Let it rip. The only reason I'm holding back the foam is kind of for a mouthfeel thing. So when I pour this into a cup with some ice, I have a little tiny bit of foam like head on the top, because the foam's going to have a hard time actually going through the siphon tube. I guess I could technically just take a little extra milk, microfoam it, and pour it into a cup or whatever, but you know, it's easier to just do it all in one go. Let me get a little ice.
We haven't experimented yet with latte art in the top of the coil. Maybe on our next test, we can like plug the hole and then put the shot in, and then pour some latte art.
So we tried this out yesterday as well. Obviously, milk in this coil is not exactly its intended purpose, but again, all you really have to do is pour a bunch of hot water through, and when it runs clear, you've got a pretty good idea of, you know, when there's no real milk residue left. And then again, just pour more hot water in with a little bit of Kafiza, and that'll kind of sit and clean everything out, and then you know, you rinse it again and you're all set. So you're talking about maybe like 2 or 3 minutes of cleaning after you're done, and probably in between brews you don't even really have to worry about cleaning it that much. You just rinse it and you're good to go. I mean, if you are doing, you know, silly milk things like I am here, then you're probably going to want to clean it every time, or at least rinse it really well. But for brewed coffee as it's intended, or tea even, you know, you could do a real quick iced tea really easily. So tea is probably, I guess if you're switching off between the two or something, you just rinse it out with water. But
yeah, we haven't tested tea yet. We've heard it works great.
We're too cool for tea.
Ha.
Throw it out.
If you're watching in our office, I'm taking the last of the cold coffee. Always clean out your server immediately after using it, kids.
So I sort of accelerated the process. I used the squeegee thing or the syringe thing to kind of speed it up, but
The serving pitcher is really cool. It's got these little indentations on it, so you can see. So you can just grab it with your hands. It's pretty nice.
Want to taste that? Yeah. It's my tasting notes. Honestly, I just think, you know, once you've steamed the milk, it has that like richer sweetness to it. I'm liking that a lot better than, you know, just throwing espresso and like regular milk together. I know that, you know, in a cafe environment, when you're talking about, you know, if you have like 10 people in a row who all want a nice latte all at once, this is not ideal. You wouldn't be doing this then. But if you're talking about doing it at home, you got like a simple espresso setup, and you know, you want to try something a little bit different than just pouring it, you know, with cold milk and ice and whatever. Then running it through coils, it's a really great and unique difference. You know, it almost tastes like, you know, I have a regular iced latte with a pump of like a demerara syrup in it or something. It has a little bit more of a caramelly flavor.
So, to summarize, basically, because you can steam the milk hot, you get a little bit better sweetness.
Yeah, you get that sort of chemical change that you get when you steam milk normally. But, you know, once you cooled it in under a minute, really.
And I've had people in shops actually steam milk and do an iced latte hot before, which is just ludicrous because it melts so much of the ice.
Yeah,
basically, they have to fill up the to-go cup.
This is super rich, too.
Yeah.
It's just like a hot latte, but cold.
So you're getting very minimal meltage, even when you're adding ice in here, and it makes such a big difference, pragmatically. They no plans that I know of now to make a bigger version.
I mean, you can. So we've only done up to 450. The thing is it can handle it. Which we should just see how much that holds.
This could probably hold 20 ounces or so.
Yeah. Yeah, it could probably hold up to 20 ounces. The bottom carafe. We've only tested up to 450 milliliters. But in theory, even if you're not using the bottom carafe, like I said, because the stainless doesn't suck the coolness out as quickly as like a copper would, you could put it on another, put it on top of something else and brew probably a larger batch, and it would work fine. But as far as building it out any larger, I haven't heard anything about that. This thing is, and Steve mentioned earlier, it's pretty heavy, so getting any larger just increases that weight. It's about, I think it's about 5.5 pounds, all the pieces together.
I never measured it, so you never.
Listen, because we give the people what they want,
Yeah.
this is live right here. Live testing. We're using H2O.
So if we want to fill it up like that much, where you have, so about 700 milliliters. And because then you still have the underhanging lip. It's probably a little bit below 700, honestly. Because you have the underhanging lip, and that's going to displace more water, so it'll probably start to spill out. Actually, yeah, 700 is probably a little bit too high.
Yeah, because that's going to sit in there.
That's 550.
Yeah.
Is that going to overflow?
Nope.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, it's way too much for this scale. Scaling.
We just broke our IKEA scale.
Yeah.
Not really. It's fine. We heard it a little
so
bit.
So like 550 or so is what you're looking at.
But it would be
not that much more than the maximum capacity.
right.
For the maximum brew.
It would be interesting. Does it fit on the Hario server? Can you grab that?
Does the top part?
Yeah.
I think it's too wide.
I think so.
Yeah.
Just in case, too wide. Okay.
Yeah. The feet kind of make it.
In theory, maybe you could have a pitcher if you wanted to try and do like 1,000 mils batch. Just go really slow. You just have to pour for a little bit.
Yeah, you could definitely just try and put it on another server. I mean, you could also fill this up with dry ice and water.
Yeah.
Why not? And it would be really cool. It'd be fogging all over the place, and it would super chill your coffee. It would probably actually freeze it in the tube.
Steve's middle name is Dry Ice. It was actually his nickname in middle school. Steve Dry Ice Reinhardt.
But yeah, do you guys have any other questions? I think we're probably going to wrap it up, but we'll take any last minute questions that you have.
Feel free to tweet at us too, even when we close this out.
Yep.
At Prima Coffee.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Brian says he loves you.
I know. Thanks for hanging out while we play with the Coil. We'll be playing with all kinds of other stuff soon.
Cool. Peace.